Thanks very much for having me here today. Um, give you kind of a quick nutshell of what we're doing is trying to kind of kick and scream into the future. WGN, obviously, as a radio brand, turns 90 years old this summer. So it's been a long trek that was incredibly interesting, born out of the newspaper. Um, and really kind of viewed by Colonel McCormick, who was the publisher of the Chicago Tribune, as, what radio in the traditional sense was intended to do, serve the community. In fact, he absolutely refused at the start to sell advertising, which would be unheard of today. And now we find ourselves in a situation where on the 7th floor of the Tribune Tower, as a radio station, we're really creating a 360 video, audio, social experience for anybody who uses our content. So that's where the title comes from, is that while my job essentially now is the programming of the radio station, it is really collaborating with a whole team of people who create all kinds of content. I mean, we're a radio station that has a staff of 3 videographers. We have social media manager. We have people who are doing nothing but creating posts for web content. And in addition to everything else that we create that is in the traditional sense through a transmitter. But it involves a lot more than just WGN-AM now. It includes essentially 3 content centers. The traditional 720 AM. There's a station now that we operate on 87.7 FM, The Game, which is a sports brand. And additionally, we're creating essentially a pod distribution center, which is WGN.FM. And the FM in this particular case, we refer to as freeform media. So it's really everything that, all of you experience in terms of how you consume, in my mind, audio entertainment. But then we're also trying to create a lot of video content as well. And we create it from a more nimble standpoint. There is, it's somewhere between what you make on your own device and what somebody is cutting up in Final Cut Pro for a national television audience. And I think that's kind of what we're just trying to do, is reflect the radio experience through video, so that we run a thread through people's lives. If you like what we do, we're there in every place. And the pod concept for me is extremely important because of the fact that there are plenty of you who have ideas that can bring some sort of show, conversation, dialogue, entertainment to people's buds. And you've now got the tools to do that without a giant radio company, without anything more than, really a downloadable version of Audacity and a USB microphone, or for that matter, using a device. So essentially, that's what we're trying to build toward. A 90-year-old brand, but that is intrinsically Chicago, but then content that can live everywhere. That's the most important thing to us right now. And, that's why we need a lot of fresh young talent. I believe that there's a lot of shows that don't necessarily move the needle in the traditional sense of radio that are extremely successful as a time-shifted experience. So listen to the podcast. I don't know, how many of you guys have a favorite podcast that gets dumped into iTunes? What's yours?
The Herd.
Okay, there you go. How about,
Mine is mostly news and talk radio.
yeah, okay, so you,
Podcasts.
okay, all right. How about,
Me?
yeah,
Mine is mostly, it's like Heather Lindsay.
okay.
She has a podcast.
Is that right? Is that somebody who, is she local? Is she, yeah?
Well, not local. I'm sorry, no.
Okay.
She's not local.
Where
but,
do you download it from?
Um,
You just subscribe through iTunes?
yeah,
and
I
drop-
just subscribe to
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So again, that's when, that's how it works. So everything we're doing is trying to honor search optimization, trying to be in people's lives through iTunes or whatever else, how it's, again, there are multiple distribution means. We've even gotten to the point now on any given day where we essentially might have 4 or 5, quote, radio stations. We've got 720 on the AM, we've got 87.7 on the FM, we've got a stream going on WGN.FM, and then some sort of alternate stream playing on both of the broadcast signals. So as an example, how many of you guys listen to baseball on the radio? And you probably have realized that Major League Baseball doesn't allow the stations that have the broadcast rights to stream the games. You get those through the MLB at-bat app or something like that, and .TV. Well, in 1999, New York, Major League Baseball, and their digital office exercised a hard stance on broadcast rights, and that meant that streaming didn't count. So they took back, up till then, even though it was pretty early in the streaming game, we were streaming Cubs baseball. And we now cannot do that. Major League Baseball owns the rights to the stream, as well as distribution of it on satellite radio. But the crazy thing about it is it's our production. I mean, the play-by-play guys are paid for by us. All of the gear is paid for by us. The sound is delivered by production costs we absorb. But in the meantime, we had to create alternate content on our stream for WGN-AM. So we play sometimes the game, our sports radio station, sometimes best of, and that sort of thing, content from the AM side. So all of these balls kind of in the air trying to touch people in a bunch of different ways. Our sports brand just came about actually launched it February 17th. It's a station called The Game. Are you guys, any of you guys aware of that? Okay, have you listened at all?
Yeah, why is Brandmeier in the morning? He has nothing to do with sports, but he's my hero, so.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when, for those of you who follow the ratings game, the traditional sense of radio ratings is if you win in the morning, you got a shot to win all day. And when sports radio first came to life, however many years ago, let's say I think 20, just a little over 20 plus, that's about the time when the Score signed on. But ESPN was starting to get into radio a little bit before that. But the idea, for the most part, was let's just go get a great morning show. Now, since then, sports brands have taken a pretty hard-line stance about defining themselves. We kind of went old school on that. We're like, you know what? We got Brandmeier in the house. It's a great morning show. Oddly enough, on any given day, Johnny's going to do some sports content. He's going to talk to a player, talk to a fan, talk to something about. So there's a connection there, and that kind of played into our plan for the game. I mean, there are, in a way, sports radio has become kind of a parody of itself. There's a way you do it. It's a hard and fast sort of, look at it. We wanted to kind of turn it upside down a little bit. Make the conversation more about the music that D. Rose is rehabbing to, or the business of sports, or really kind of get into sports in a broader sense. I've gone out of my way to bring women who have great creds as ESPN analysts and reporters, and and have some sort of an athletic career to get into that. Our goal is to be a brand that, like the AM, has more gender balance. To give you an idea, in news talk radio, which is essentially what WGN-AM is as a quote format, the national audience tends to be 70% male. WGN is, and has been, at least in its heyday, actually skewing heavier female, which we think is unique in the marketplace for us. We feel like that puts us in a position where we can be a station that families share. There's just something about that. There's a little bit more of a dialogue. I don't want to pretend that I know women, but I know that my wife doesn't like to be, preached to or pontificated on. And you know what the brand of talk radio is? A bunch of guys walk in a room and they're supposed to just stir the pot, and there's no like genuine dialogue going on there. It's like what's going to churn the phones, what's going to get people upset, what's going to really kind of like I guess it's not necessarily discourse. And so that's kind of what we have attempted to do really over the long haul, as a brand on the AM. And we think that's an important part of what we should be doing on our sports franchise too. So.